Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. All right, so first of all, congratulations on your son Miles. What a amazing accomplishment. I'm sure you're extremely proud.
Yeah, oh yeah.
What's it like, and how lucky you are to actually get to play music with him? How does that make you feel when you guys are playing together?
Well, the fact that he is as good as he is, it makes it a lot of fun. If he wasn't as killer of a player, it just may make it uncomfortable. But it's so funny. I don't even think about that anymore. And he's always been a very natural player. When I started touring with Amy Grant, one of our drummers was Greg Morrow, who, God, he's A-lister, drummer here in town, has played with everybody, played with ZZ Top, everybody. I mean, he's just ridiculous of a player. Well, and that was the drummer. And so Miles would watch us night after night. He would sit behind the drum throne. They would give him, he was so cute then, not anymore. They would give him a set of headphones, and he would watch the show, and he would see what you play and what you don't play. He learned so much by some of the drummers, the great drummers that I get to work with. And so it was very natural for him to start playing drums. I'll never forget, I was at a friend of mine's house, a friend of mine named Lyle Vilhauer, and Lyle had a place, Broadway music consignments here in Nashville, where you could go on your lunch break from a session and see what cool gear happened to walk in that day. Mm-hmm. And we were at Lyle's house having dinner, and he said, "Hey, I got something in my basement I want to show you." We went down there, and we're looking at something, and Miles drifts off, and the next thing I know, he's on a drum kit that Lyle has down there, and he's playing full kit, like full, and not dumb. He's playing a real groove. And I'm like, when did you start playing drums? And he's like, I don't know. And I looked at my wife that I was married to at that point, and I was like, oh my gosh, we have a drummer. We have a drummer. I have all these guitars, all this stuff he could use, and he goes for drums. But, ended up recording him when he was real young, and fed him a click, and he was on it like a cheap suit. He has such a natural thing. And the thing that stands out as far as him in the studio, one, he has unbelievable amounts of energy when he plays the drums. And then also his song sense and what parts should happen. I learned from the way he hears music. I learned from him now. So it's a lot of fun. I kind of think it's like, what would it be like if you see on these movies where a firefighter, his son comes to work at the station alongside his dad. It kind of feels like that, I guess, but we don't save lives. So.
No, it is. How old is he?
I'm in denial over how old Miles is. He was born in 81, so he's 36.
He's 36. Well, because my oldest son is 27, and we've gone and worked out in the gym for an hour or two at a time on many occasions, and I know how good that feels, and there's like no emotion attached to that. So I can only imagine, playing music with Miles. I mean, that's just gotta be just like, as a dad, just such a warm, just an excellent feeling, and everything's clicking.
Yeah, and it's the type of thing that it kind of snuck up on me, in that I didn't help him get studio work. He came up on his own. I mean, he started. He ended up getting into hardcore in a hardcore indie band he was in a band called Look What I Did, and they're still together. And he was on the first record. You can find it, and it's I don't know how they would even rehearse the stuff that they would play. It's amazing. But they ended up moving out to L.A. Their plan was to move out to L.A., get a record deal, do a record tour. They moved out to L.A., they got a record deal, they made a record, they toured, and made no money.
How? What, nobody showed up?
Well, just the travel versus how much money you get from the club. It's a washout. You know, there were times where they would have to panhandle for gas to try to get home.
Wow.
You know? And I remember when he was living out in Los Angeles, I remember asking him, you know, he was in his 20s, and I said, well, and he was like, you know, I'm making no money. I should maybe just try to find a road gig with somebody. And I said, well, like with who, you know? Because I had him so in my mind as far as this hard rock guy, you know, metal guy. And he said, man, you know, somebody like, he said, I tell you who I'd love to tour with would be Kelly Clarkson. And
Whoa.
at that, she was, American Idol?
Yeah, but that probably came out of left field.
Came out of left field.
Yeah.
And I remember when he said that on the phone, I'm like, are you joking? And he's like, no, man, it's power pop. He said, I love power pop. I love big arena drums. So he ended up moving back to Nashville, and a few years later got the opportunity to audition for her band. And they did it really interesting. Like they auditioned, I guess, a dozen drummers, and all these guys flew in from out of town just to audition for her.
Wow.
And then they knocked it down to just a few drummers, and had them in for a second. You know, the first round was just to play to a track. Then they knocked it down to just to a handful of drummers. They got to play with the band, with Kelly's band. Mm-hmm. Then the next day, they came. The band came in, and they played blindfold test each drummer to the band.
Oh.
And chose it on a blindfold listening test, and Miles got the gig.
Very cool.
Yeah, and he toured with her for 4 years. He made a lot of relationships in Nashville with producers and stuff at that point. And then he ended up going out on the road with Paramore, this rock band that's out of Nashville, did a European tour and a South American tour, and built this whole thing. So when he came back into town, he just started doing sessions, and he's been just burning it down ever since. And he basically works every day.
That's awesome. Do you guys like give a discount? to buy one, get one 30% off?
No, when you hire us both, you get about 30% less out of us. I call us the failing McPhersons. The flying McPhersons. I call us the failing McPhersons.
That's funny. Hey, just so you know, Look What I Did's most recent album, Zanzibar 3 Analog Prison, was named the best metal album of 2015 by the Nashville scene.
It's a good band. I
go,
gotta tell you, that's awesome.
There you go. How many kids do you have?
I have two. Miles, and then my daughter, his younger sister, by 11 and a half years. It's Alice Miro, Miro. Alice Miro McPherson, and I'm very proud of her. She has no musical abilities whatsoever. None. And she went to DePaul University up in Chicago, and graduated with a double major in hospitality communications, and then landed a corporate gig out in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
She's working as a corporate event planner out in San Francisco and loves it there.
That's awesome.
And she's just doing great. She's killing me.
That's wonderful, man. Great education. And,
yes.
And you're single, right?
Yes. I divorced in 2008. Amicably. I'm still on good terms with my ex and everything, but it was best that we separated when we did.
Good for you. That's unusual when you have like an amicable divorce, especially when there's kids involved.
Yeah.
Because usually if you're not getting along too well when you're together, it doesn't get better when you're
so I've heard
when you're apart. Hey, what's your best childhood memory?
Probably just hanging out with my grandfather.
Tell me about him.
Yeah, he was a good dude. I was named after him. His name is, I'm actually Jerome.
Okay.
And he was Jerome Honeywell. And he was just such a great guy, upstanding guy. Everybody loved him. He fought in World War I.
Wow. And
that was in the days when the Germans were using mustard gas. So he had on a mask, with the hose and everything down into a canister, and someone shot through the hose on his mask.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and so he ended up getting mustard gas, and he was down to one kind of working lung, so he always had health problems. He never complained, never talked about the war, but he was just a great guy to hang with.
What did he do?
Yeah. What's that?
What did he do?
Well, he couldn't really work. He was on disability from there on out.
Yeah, after the war. Yeah, that makes sense.
He was a mess, yep. But he never complained. Yeah, really good guy.
You might have answered this question already when you talked about kind of alternative indie rock, but you're a jack of all trades and you're a master of all of them, unlike the normal conversation, jack of all trades, master of none. Mm-hmm. But where's your heart? Like, if you want to go sit and hang out and play on a Saturday night with 2 or 3 guys, what would you play? What kind of music?
Well, number one, I'd first have to learn it.
Touche.
I love well-crafted songs. Peter Gabriel was such a huge influence musically. His music was such an influence on me. And then I also love pop music, and I also love rock. So it would have to be that blend of all those, all those ingredients of some pop sensibilities, but with the darkness and depth and beauty of like what Peter Gabriel would do, but along with some, the energy of like, rock stuff. I just went and saw an old concert thing of Tears for Fears, and they were amazing. Yeah. And it makes me miss those days of like, the early days of Sting and Tears for Fears and different types of music like that. I always gravitate towards that stuff.
You ever hear that Peter Gabriel song called Biko?
Oh, yeah.
That's one of my all-time favorite songs. What a emotionally powerful song.
Yep.
There's what's that? Sorry.
He just has a way of tapping into that where it's like, hey, wait a minute, I'm feeling something. He's amazing.
If you weren't doing what you're doing now, and this is probably a hard question, what do you think you would be doing?
I don't know. Maybe something in the sciences. I've always been drawn to electromechanical things and design and problem solving. And my dad was pretty good at that kind of stuff. So I think I picked it up from him. So I would maybe some type of engineering thing. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. That would be a hard one.
I smell a McPherson amp.
Well,
sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
Well, I've smelled several of my amps that I didn't build, but I did burn up.
I bet, man.
I have. I've burned up a few.
Hey, what's been the happiest moment or time period of your life so far?
I don't know. There's the obvious of, birth of kids. Mm-hmm. And then when you see them, finally take off from the nest, that's probably up there. For me, though, I have such a long outlook on my life in that I'm not looking for a particular arrival point. I'm just trying to do everything brick by brick, and I want those bricks to be good. So I'm feel like I'm been trying to steadily build up this ever-growing journey of, I just want today, I want to be a better me than I was yesterday, So it's hard for me to pick out a particular time. I can just, it's like if you were laying bricks and you turn around and looked at the wall and you go, yeah, there was no particular brick that stood out. Maybe there were some better bricks, but it's that looking back at the totality of it and going, yeah, okay, I'm getting somewhere.
So it sounds like you're also a guy that you probably do a good job of living in the present. Yeah,
and having long-term goals, maybe too long. Maybe I give myself too long. Some of the goals I'm trying to brush up my timing on, like getting in better shape. I now work out just about every day, whereas before I'm like, yeah, one of these days I'm going to get in shape, and now I try to submit my body to the YMCA just about every day that I, can.
Yeah, but let me tell you, that is something that you'll see and feel a difference. But as I've been working out a long time, and now I'm really grateful for it, because at 53, I feel great, and I see my peers.
They don't look so good, do they?
Man, I can't tell you how many times, and I'm not a Facebook guy. I mean, I'll go on there, like, truth be told, when I'm in the toilet. I just don't have time for that, and I'll see something. I'll call my wife over and I'll say, babe, please tell me I don't look as bad as this guy. and it's someone that I went to high school or I'm like, holy crap. So I think that's actually pretty congruent with what you said about you setting longer goals, because you will definitely pay off. There's a massive payoff from that, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely feel more focused. I feel more upright and less wobbly as a person.
Yeah. I mean, it does everything.
It centers stuff up. And also, I still have goals for myself as a guitarist, and it kind of feeds into I need to be a better person in order to be a better guitarist, a healthier person in order to be a healthier guitarist,
Yeah, well, that'll definitely pay off for me. Congratulations. That's a smart step. Who's the most important person in your life?
Man, that's a tough one.
Very.
That's a tough one. You mean as far as influence, or just not influence? Just
there's two. You could be. I used to have two questions. Who's been the biggest influence and who's been the most important person? Because I do think the two are different. So you answer whichever one makes the best sense to you, or both, or none.
Yeah, it's really hard. It would be like, which kid do you like better?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So it's a little bit of that. I've been with the same girl, my girlfriend Lisa. I've been with her for 6.5 years now.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Congrats.
And we have the greatest time together. And she's the one that's gotten me into working out and staying in shape. She's very athletic, and she's been awesome. And I would proudly display my diet to anyone. I'm very happy with the way we eat. We're not buying into the crap that big business is sticking in front of our faces.
That's awesome.
I like pure music, and I like pure food, and what's on the radio and what you get out of the fast food or in the middle of the aisles of the grocery store is not pure,
For sure, man.
Yeah. So she's been amazing in that regards. But to put her above my kids, or to put my kids above her, it's kind of hard for me to do.
Sure.
I've just, I'll have to stick my kids and my girlfriend and my little dog Lupita.
Well, that's a fair enough answer, man.
Lupi is from Mexico.
What were you on tour when you picked her up?
No, I used to have a house in Mexico. For a few years, I had a house in a town called San Miguel de Allende. It's in the state of Guanajuato in central Mexico. It's way up in the mountains. It's a town that was founded in the 1500s, cobblestone roads, old historic town. There's been some movies shot there, and you just can't believe that it exists, you know. And I bought a house there and commuted out of there for a while when I was touring with Faith Hill and Tim. And,
is that like your escape pad, or?
Yeah, and my daughter and my wife at that point, they were living there, and my daughter went to school and learned Espanol. And
so you're bilingual, I'm assuming.
No.
Oh.
I can order in a Mexican restaurant off the menu.
Let me ask you a question. When you were in Mexico and you went into the store, did the Mexican people say to you in Spanish, "Man, you live in this country, can't you speak the language?"
Yeah, I took some Spanish while I was there, and at the time, I could speak enough, but man, if you don't keep it up, it will fall off of your body and die. You know,
it's like
stuff will.
It's like learning a guitar lick. It's easy to learn it. It's hard to retain it. Yeah, you got to play it and play it. And you said play it hundreds of times. That's exactly it's the same thing with a language.
Yeah. So I had that house there for a couple of years. It was amazing, and I ended up getting a great dog out of the deal. So
awesome. Hey, what would you say your biggest business or personal win has been so far?
Biggest personal or business win? I think, one thing I've learned from my parents, and this is, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but I did learn that it's never too late to mess up. It's never too late to screw up. You can live your life a certain way, and then you can get to the end and kind of go out on a sloppy ending. And I don't want to do that. And I think my biggest personal win is that I'm still in the present, and I'm still in a good place, and I've not chosen a sloppy, terrible path. Does that make sense at all?
It does make sense. And I'll ask you, and by all means, you have 100% right to say not interested. Would you be interested in explaining that or being more specific?
Well, and let me give you an example. Here in Nashville, we have a team that came to Tennessee, the Tennessee Titans. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to get to play on some of the music that they play in the stadium. So for the first couple of years, I had seats, season tickets. And it was amazing. And we had a great, great quarterback, Steve McNair. Mm-hmm. Amazing quarterback. Highly regarded in the community. Cool guy. Great career. Great guy. Beautiful wife. Beautiful kids. Beautiful house. Had it all. And he ended up hooking up with this young teenage girl, and the teenage girl ended up shooting him and shooting herself. And I thought, dang it. Now when you think of Steve McNair,
yeah, man,
you think of that. And I don't know that it's everybody's looking for you to stumble or what, but I think my biggest personal win has been that I feel like I've been on a good path in my life, and I haven't strayed from it, and I don't plan on straying from it. And that's hard. Mm-hmm. It's harder than scoring one great account, or you were on that album or whatever. It's a lot harder than any of that stuff. And so for me, that's a personal win for me, is that I'm still on a good path, and I plan on staying that. I plan on not ending up an alcoholic or a druggie or something, and living as long as I can and with a happy life, you know.
And now you're in good shape, so. But no, listen, I think that life is very difficult. And the older you get, sometimes it seems like the more bullshit you get, and then it gets to a point where maybe it tapers off a little bit. But yeah, you got to be made out of steel to sometimes get through some of the stuff that's put in front of you.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm looking for even business wins or personal wins and stuff. I'm looking for not that, you know. I mean, it would be cool to be Neil Armstrong and have walked on the moon. That's a good one.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
First guy on the moon. Only one guy got that.
Uh-huh.
It would be cool to be able to point to, and that album that I wrote and produced and played on sold 50 million records. That would be cool.
Right.
But I'm more interested in the personal path and how it affects my career path too. Yep.
Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Do you have any hobbies outside of music besides working out and your little
I love tinkering with stuff.
You're a tinkerer.
Yeah, I love building things and motors and gears and pulleys, and that's why I ended up building that robotic microphone mover.
What's going on with that thing? Is that something that's like, I know you got a patent on it. Is that something that's going to be sold or?
No, I've built only a few of them. I left one at a studio. My friend Paul Moak has one at the Smokestack, a studio here in town. It's basically what the deal was is that I've also done programming for some companies, like sound programming. Like Native Instruments approached me to do some their factory presets for Guitar Rig in their software. And I got used to switching out cabinets and microphone positions and stuff. And I had about 8 or 10 amps that I wanted to use in my studio, and I wanted to be able to use different microphones and different positioning. And I thought, well, okay, I'll get like 3 mics for each cabinet, you know. And I thought, wait, that's 30 microphones. And it was not going to work, you know. So I was trying to figure out, how can I get one microphone to all these cabinets, around all these cabinets? Well, what I ended up doing, I started ordering off the internet servo motors, like pretty big servo motors that I could control with a joystick. And I took it to a machine shop, had it rehoused, and I have an amp room where all my cabinets, I got this idea from Billy Gibbons. He would build an amp cabin in the studio where he had all these cabinets facing into each other, and he would put a mic in the middle. But what I did, I put the servo motor in the middle, and then the arm would swing around, and it can mic up the different cabinets as it swings around. So the cabinets are in a big circle, and they're about, I would say about 8 feet apart, or maybe not that far, maybe more like 7 feet apart. And I have a video camera on them, and from my studio, I can position the microphone at the right place on the cabinet and then store that location.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you do guitar overdubs, because the main difference in sound that you'll hear is from the different cabinets and speakers, not the amp heads. And a friend of mine was over here, a young guitar player named Paul Allen, great guitar player, who can shred also. But he said, because I had that switching system and stuff and all these amp heads, he said, man, let's hear all these amp heads recorded one at a time into the same cabinet. I was like, okay. So I moved the mic to that cabinet. He would play. I would plug the head into that speaker cabinet. We would record it. So we recorded, like, I've got here, sitting here, I've got a Matchless, a 94 Matchless.
Wow.
I've got a deluxe reverb blackface, Fender. We recorded that in the cabinet. I have a Vox AC30 top boost from 1965. We recorded that into the same cabinet. I have a 50-watt Plexi Marshall.
Wow.
1966 with the tube rectifier. We recorded that in the cabinet. I have a 90s Vox AC15 that I love. Recorded that. Had a dual rectifier, a Boogie dual rectifier from the early 90s before they changed the transformer design on that. Plugged all those different amp heads into that cabinet, and he would play. When we listened to them all back to back, it sounded ridiculously similar. The cabinet samed everything out. It was crazy. So, but conversely, you could take one amp and run it into all these different cabinets, and it sounds like you've plugged into a totally different amplifier.
So your conclusion is that the speakers are more important than the head?
Yeah. As far as those changes in character and sound. So what ends up happening in the studio is that we, typically we'll go in with 1 or 2 cabinets and 3 or 4 amp heads. And they'll mic up the cabinet, and then they'll never move the mic. And all these different guitar sounds, they end up, even with different pedals and stuff, they start to take on the same character, and they don't set themselves apart. So when it goes to mix time, the mix engineer ends up carving a lot of lows off of this one, adding mids to this one, taking some highs off of this one, trying to get some different characters going to where they all have their own little place to fit in the sonic, mix. But when you use all these different speakers, you end up, they never step on each other. And so that's, for me, that's the biggest thing my biggest takeaway from having my remote microphone mover, is that my overdubs don't end up overlapping on top of each other. And you don't end up with this one big guitar. You end up with the character of, new speakers, old speakers, British speakers, American speakers. It was really eye-opening to get to hear that.
So now when you make tone selections, you're thinking about cabinets, not heads necessarily.
Yeah, exactly.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, that is very
I
interesting.
also have to tell you this, on the tinkering end, so I have a 55 Tweed Deluxe.
Wow.
Down in my amp room. It has 3 knobs on it, 2 volumes, 1 tone. I ended up finding online these servo motors that come off of, they're meant for sailboats, little toy but not toys, remote controlled sailboats, like you see people use in Central Park and stuff. Yeah. I ended up getting 3 of those motors, and then a little conversion board that converts MIDI into servo language. And now in my studio, I can turn the knobs up and down on my Tweed Deluxe.
Very cool.
40 feet away. And also on my Tweed Champ, I have a Tweed Champ, and I have a servo motor on it too.
Wow, very cool. God, your studio's like a museum.
It is, yeah.
Oh, I mean, that sounds awesome. You could just walk through there and go, wow.
Yeah, it's fun.
What's the favorite part of what you do and the least favorite?
Favorite part, I feel really fortunate that here in Nashville, like I said before, we still believe in getting a bunch of people together in a room and not doing it one at a time. Because when one person does something, you can't really feed off of it, and it's not dynamic at that point. Everyone plays off of each other when you're in the room together and everyone's listening. My favorite is the personalities. You don't get the inner office politics that you would. If you're working a job and you can't stand the person that you're working next to, the bad news is that tomorrow they're going to be there.
Yeah.
And the next day, and the next day, and the next day. In the studio, if somebody's a jerk, they don't get rehired. They're not going to be there the next day.
Right.
So you end up working with guys that are fun to be with, that are funny, that are amazing players, that are, great listeners, kind people, the kind of people that you want to hang out with and make music with.
Right.
So that's my favorite part. The least favorite part would be someone who has written a song and did not take a lot of time to do it, or you can't put a time limit on it, but someone that comes in with a bad song and beats you up over their bad song because no matter what you do, it's still going to be a bad song.
That happens.
It happens. It happens a lot. It happens too much. In fact, I've nicknamed us that we're song paramedics.
Oh, because you got to, you got to triage a song.
If you could imagine 4 or 5 guys beating on the chest of a song, trying to get it to live.
Wow. And so is this basically like someone with more money than sense that they can afford to rent studio time and pay for quality A-list guys? And then,
well, now sometimes they don't even have enough money. Here was the deal. Back in the day, hey, I haven't said that too much.
No, he was very moderated. Yeah, you gave a disclaimer, but it was totally not necessary. I probably said it more than you.
Back in the day, the rule of thumb is there's 3 things that you look for: good music, good people, good money, and you try to get 2 out of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's good music and good people, you don't really care what the money is.
Sure.
If it's good music and good pay, you don't even really have to know them. You just try to get 2 out of the 3.
Yeah.
And the way things are with the music industry now, because of, people don't buy music anymore.
Sure.
The budgets aren't there. You're just, a lot of times you'll get 1 out of the 3, You'll settle for good music, or you'll settle for good friends, or you'll settle for good money.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so that's just what happens now. So you got to, and so guys will come in there, and an artist or whoever will basically make their problems your problems. Like, you're not doing this good, and your position is, look, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that song paramedic thing. We're all beating on the chest of it, and then give us the playback, and it's like, boo.
That's a good analogy, man. That's a very good analogy. Hey, if heaven exists, what do you want to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates? And I certainly hope that's not for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, me too. Job well done.
Man, that's good. Nice and simple.
Yep.
We just got a couple more.
And try the veal.
Try the veal, yeah. I'll be here through Saturday. Try the veal. Tip your waitress. Tip your waiters and waitresses. What is the most important lesson your business has taught you?
The most important thing my business has taught me. Oh. Do what you love. That's huge.
Fair enough. You think that's made a big difference? Sticking out all the the good and the bad times, is that this is just where you saw yourself, that this is where your heart was?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a drug.
Yeah.
When you've got the headphones jacked way up, and you get these chill bump moments from either the song or the singer, it's a drug.
Yeah.
And you'll keep coming back for it, and so I love it, and I feel really lucky to be doing what I love, because it keeps you from I make the joke, somebody will say, hey, were you working today? And I'll go, yeah, if you call what I do work.
Yeah.
It is work, but it's not, because you're doing what you love.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Oh, and you know how people, when someone's in a job that they don't love, they'll all in their cubicle, they'll have pictures of going trout fishing or hiking or whatever, and they're waiting for that moment where they can get their vacation time and get out of here and go. When I'm on my days off, I'm still playing my guitar.
Yeah, that's huge. That is huge. That is huge.
Yeah.
2 more questions. First is, you have made what I would imagine is so many cool memories playing with so many different artists. Is there 1 or 2 experiences, though, which stick out for you above and beyond the others for whatever reason?
And this is where my family would be probably better equipped to tell them about. For me, the stuff that sticks out are those moments like when I've heard an artist growing up as a kid, and then to get to work with them in the studio.
Like the Tom Johnson thing.
Yeah, Tom Johnson's a good one. The first time it happened to me was on a Kenny Rogers record.
Mm-hmm.
And, met him. It's like, hey, cool. It's great to work with you.
You remember Kenny with the first edition, though, I bet, right?
Oh, yeah. And I think they were in Texas.
I think so. Was it Something's Burning? They had that hit? Or no, Mrs.
See what condition my condition was in?
Yeah, no, it was Sylvia's Mother. That was another big one. Yeah.
Well, was that Dr. Hook?
Maybe it was. I think. Yeah, that might have been Dr. Hook. Yeah.
Well, so, I'm looking at him, I'm like, dang, that's freaking Kenny Rogers. And so we go in, we listen to the demo of the song, and then we go in to start to record it, and we play through it a few times, and they say, all right, Kenny, you want to try it? And they put him on a mic, and we're all in there. And he starts singing, and it was the weirdest thing. It was a voice I had heard all my life, but to hear it in my headphones, it was like, oh my gosh.
A pinch me moment?
Yeah, it is. There's something about you sometimes you glorify. Engineers do this all the time. Hey man, how'd you get that vocal sound on so and so? It's like we stuck a microphone in front of their face. I've worked with Dolly Parton, and when you hear her in your headphones, it's like there's no trick to it.
Uh-huh.
The only trick is getting them to show up. Same with Peter Cetera
from Chicago
and Donna Summers. She's these singers. When you finally get to work with them live and hear them, you realize there's not a gag, there's not a trick. Yeah, they're lucky to be where they are, but they're genuinely just that great. I got to do a benefit where a bunch of artists came through, and I was in the house band, and Michael McDonald was one of the singers. And when he came up to sing, all the band members, we all stood at we stared at our monitors. It was like, is this the same monitor that we've had all day? His voice was so full range and so unbelievable that it sounded like a new sound system.
And he's got to be pushing 70s, no?
He was unbelievable, and I worked with him in the studio, and the people that have been around forever, they're around there for a reason. They really are that good.
That's great.
No, they really are that good. So that's always stuck out in my head. I did a tour with Vince Gill.
Mm-hmm.
What stood out for me on that is, one, he never learned any wrong notes. That's a good gag. He played perfectly every night, and we all traveled on the same bus. He didn't take the back stateroom of the bus. He took a bunk like everybody else.
That is very cool.
He had a sleeping bag that had hunting dogs on it. When we would get to the hotel, he and everybody else, we would all open up the bay of the buses, and you'd fish out your luggage. He would carry his own luggage up to the desk, would get a key, and every hotel that you stay in, they always comp the artist's room, it's free because you're booking 30,
all these other rooms, yeah,
you're booking 30 rooms, so it's customary to give the artist a big suite free. He never would take them. His room would be next door to your room.
Wow.
And he would, and all artists use a pseudonym, so people can't call him up.
Yeah.
And he would check in under the name of Vince Gill. And I asked him one time, I said, Vince, don't you have like a crazy name like Ricky Ricardo or something? And he goes, no. I said, you check in under Vince Gill. And he goes, yeah. And I said, do any of your fans ever find you and call you? And he goes, yeah. And I said, what do you do? And he goes, I talk to them. And then we would go to the halls, and the dressing room would say Vince Gill and band. He didn't have his own dressing room.
Wow.
And when we'd walk out to the stage, he'd just walk out a few feet further. And I finally told him, I said, man, you're missing a great opportunity here to be a superstar. But you're just like one everybody else. And that's the way he is. He doesn't care about any of the trappings or whatever you would call it. He's just a very down-to-earth guy.
Now, if Vince Gill gets assaulted with phone calls, it's your fault.
He makes it a little too easy.
Oh, Vince Gilson. Oh, let's give him a call. Where is he staying? Wow, that is that's very cool.
Yeah.
Hey, can you share like a bizarre or crazy celebrity road story? Obviously, you don't need to name names.
The road story. I mean, they're not real bizarre. One time I was in Australia. I was staying in a place called the Siebeltown House in Sydney, and I was a big fan of Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap, turn it up to 11.
Exactly. So it was a day off. Walked into the lobby of the hotel, and there was Derek Smalls of Spinal Tap, who is Harry Shearer, who does the voiceovers for The Simpsons and a bunch of shows. But Harry Shearer, he was Derek Smalls. He was in full rock regalia, leather, chains, the mutton chops coming down his cheeks, the long wig. He had it all, and, the big boots and everything. And I saw him and I said, Derek Smalls. And he goes, yeah. And he was talking with the English accent. And I said, oh my gosh, is the rest of the band staying here? He says, no, I'm just here on a radio promotional tour. And I asked him all these questions, and he answered them. Very, very nice guy. He went upstairs. I couldn't believe it. None of my other bandmates were around to see that. So later that evening, we were going to meet downstairs and walk over to an Indian restaurant. So I'm waiting for them. I cannot wait to tell them I met Derek Smalls. So I'm waiting for the first guy to come out. The elevator opens up, and out walks Harry Shearer. Now he's in a Hawaiian print shirt, khaki pants, and little Docker tennis shoes. And he had gotten totally out of all the rock stuff and was wearing Hawaiian print shirts. And I went up to him and I said, Harry Shearer. I asked him every question I had asked him as Derek Smalls. I asked him as Harry Shearer.
Kidding me.
Every question.
Did he remember that you were the same? Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, and he was kind enough to go through. Oh my God! How? So that was like a comedy scene. You were both playing on each other.
Exactly.
Holy smokes! That is just hilarious. Oh my God!
So another time I was on the road. It was up in Albany, New York, and Jack Nicholson was filming a movie with Meryl Streep. It was called Ironweed, and we were opening for Bruce Hornsby, and we were backstage. We had played our set. Bruce was fixing to go on.
Who you playing with then?
I was working with Amy's husband, Gary Chapman, who was signed to RCA Records.
Okay.
And we toured opening for Bruce Hornsby for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It was during his breakout thing of Mandolin Rain and That's Just the Way It Is,
mm-hmm.
and all those big hits that he had. It was during that time. And backstage door opens up. It's Jack Nicholson.
Wow, that's funny.
And he's smoking a cigarette, and he's looking around. He's going, "Which one of you is Bruce?"
Is that how he talked, just like that?
Yeah, oh, totally. He was totally Jack Nicholson. Like, he's over here, sir. We'll introduce you. So they were talking, Bruce, and we're all standing around. And you have to realize that the group of guys that I was running around with, when we would travel from city to city, we would watch Jack Nicholson movies.
Oh.
And one of our favorite movies was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
What a killer movie, man.
So
amazing.
The entire band, we went up to Jack, and in unison, we quoted from his movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. As a group, we said, "Doc, I'm up to 50,000 volts a day. The next girl I hook up with is going to light up like a pinball machine and pay silver dollars."
He must have loved that, no?
He said, "My God, guys, I'm trying to forget them, and you're trying to remember them."
That's funny.
Yeah.
Very cool.
He ended up signing my guitar, and I still have that. So
that's awesome.
That was a good one.
You've had a very clean, like you mentioned, you haven't had any drug issues or anything like that, or you don't use drugs. It sounds like you've had a very clean, like healthy music career.
Yeah, session work isn't a good place to do drugs and stuff.
Yeah.
I
can see that.
You have to be really focused, and you can't go in there and just kind of swing a bat around. You have to be really focused and ready to knock it out of the park,
Yeah, but for sure, because like you said, you won't be there the next day, but that is, again, a separate issue from that you didn't mess around with that stuff.
Yeah, and that was my upbringing.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was scared to do drugs. I was afraid it might kill me or something. I didn't know.
Well, good for you, man. It served you well, and I'm sure it serves your kids well.
Fear can really be a big part of a person's life.
Yeah. No, for sure. I totally get
Fear
it.
and guilt.
I get that, man, for sure.
Fear and guilt have fueled civilizations, and yeah.
Jerry, I cannot thank you enough for your incredibly generous time, man. And I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Is there anything we can promote, or anything you're working on now we can let people know about? I know you're probably not on social media, and you're not trying to get Instagram likes. And
yeah, I had to get off of Facebook during the election time. It just got so
out of control. Yeah, man.
Yeah, it got out of control, and it not everybody. I don't think that everybody should have a gun. I don't think that everybody should hold a gun in their hand or a megaphone, and social media seems to be a megaphone in everyone's hand. I don't want to hear what everybody has to say.
I agree with you 100%, and I wound up unfriending and on both sides. It's just like, you know what? Yep. Just because you have an opinion doesn't mean everybody wants to hear it 24/7.
Yeah, and people are going to shoot their guns and their mouths off at the wrong time. So I just had to kind of steer away from you. If I would like to promote good citizenship and civility. I don't really have anything to promote.
Nothing to promote. We can't find you online, but you're truly like the secret weapon, man. You're the what do you call it? The Colonel's secret recipe in the music world.
Well, and the thing is that for what I do, I'm not an artist. If I were an artist, I would have a website, I would have merchandise, but I'm a sideman, and the connections that I've made have not been through promotion. They've been through word of mouth and from someone hearing me. So then, the Facebook thing, maybe it would help me get a gig, but I don't know that anyone that has a studio career in town because of a website. There's showing up and impressing someone with what you did with their song and making their song live. It'd be like taking care of their kids or raising their kids. You can't build a website is never going to top that.
Well, you mentioned earlier that your dad sold used cars and was an auctioneer, and that was an old school business in the sense that your livelihood was based on your relationships, and you're in the same situation because it doesn't matter what you'd have online or not. Your livelihood is based on your personality, your talent, and your relationships.
Yeah.
So it's very similar. You're almost invisible online, but I want, and I'll post this on the website. There's a solo, or you could look this up. If you Google Faith Hill, go on YouTube and search for Faith Hill. The name of the song is Stronger, and then you put in brackets live on Letterman 2007. Jerry's got a solo around the 2-minute mark, and you're actually bopping all over the stage there. I was pretty impressive. Yeah, you're like totally cutting loose with that Les Paul, man. You could see you were into that. But man, that's just a small sample that's a perfect example of you said so much without using a million notes. Yeah, that's a perfect example. What a beautiful solo that was.
That was on my Les Paul that ended up in the water.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a cherry burst, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Is there any place else online where people can listen to more of your playing? Do you know even?
No, I mean, I have to search it out. I have to go on All Music Guide and go, now what have I played on? I honestly do. And so much of what we do now is not credited. You'll play on, back in the day, you would be hired for a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time, to record an entire record. Now you'll go in and you'll record 1 or 2 songs on an artist, and you're not even sure if that's going to be, if that's going to see the light of day. They may end up just getting a sync thing out of it and getting it on TV, or putting it in a movie, or using it as a promotional thing on the website. Or it may be a radio single. But because you're not doing entire projects now, and it's these little singles, you're not even going to see credits on that. I can't even find out. I have to find out. I went to a number one party, and my son was there. He played. We had both played on it. And then you're able to go, oh, yeah, you were on that, and you were on that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really sad how in the age of information, we don't have information.
Yeah, you don't have good information. There's a ton of shit out there that you could read about. I mean, I was talking to the younger guitar player who referred you to me. I was talking with him. He's
Blake.
Blake, what a sweet young kid. I mean,
yeah, Blake, he's a good one. He's a good egg.
Awesome. And I was talking with him, and he posts some stuff on Facebook, and it's always it's interesting. He posts some stuff about some amp stuff he was doing. And I said, I and I'm not on there a lot again. And I said, I saw that article. It was really interesting. I said, I really appreciate the stuff you promote. And he goes, really? Why is that? I said, because you're not just showing me your fish tacos that you had for dinner. It's just weird. But listen, man, I can't thank you enough. You're just a class act. You're a genuine, sincere guy. I'm really honored and privileged that you gave me an opportunity to talk with you. And I thank you very much for everything. And everybody listening, I hope you enjoyed this interview. And I want to thank Jerry so much for spending the time with us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks. It feels like we need to come up with some kind of a prize for anyone who actually makes it through the entire interview.
Yes, the prize is you're going to get a free guitar lesson from Jerry. And you get Vince Gill's phone number.
Well, man, thanks so much. I enjoyed this big time.
Hey, man, I would look forward to coming to Nashville and meeting you in person.
You got to do it. You got to do it, Craig.
Thank you, man.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, thanks very much for listening. You can sign up to get notified of future episodes on our website at everyonelovesguitar.com. Now go play your guitar and have fun. Till next time, I'm out. Peace. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.